Hello, today we're doing a brief review of the Dao de Ching, the Tao Te Ching, or however you want to spell it, with a D or a T because it's Chinese, so the English spelling doesn't really matter. So we have right here the Dao de Ching. This, if you read the audiobook, you can get on YouTube. You can just type it in and it'll read it to you, right? Um, you can buy it at any bookstore. They have multiple copies. It's about the only Asian theological text that is commonly available, apparently. Um, so let's start by reading just one little excerpt, more or less random thing that I underlined. The kingdom is a spirit-like thing, and cannot be got by active doing. He who would win it destroys it. He who would hold it in his grasp loses it. That more or less underlines the whole theme here. The theme being the Tao. The Tao being something that is nameless, a higher power, the driving force of reality, more or less. You might think that the Dao de Ching is more like this book, or some other Buddhist text or something. But actually, it's probably more like this book, just in far more flowery ancient Chinese language, I suppose. Taoism is a very interesting thing, being a religion, and it does err more on the side of religion than philosophy, for a number of reasons. Namely, modern Taoism is a full-fledged religion with traditions, priests, rituals, the whole nine yards. But those are not in the Tao Te Ching. Those are later additions that have been formed over the years, and many of those things were already existing before it was written, or before Taoism became popular. So those those aren't the core of this book, at least. Those are part of modern Chinese Taoism. Taoism is very flexible, though, and synchronizing it with other religions is common practice. So synchronizing it with a Western religion, such as Christianity, is not unheard of. In fact, it is practiced, and is not anti-Taoist. It's anti-modern Chinese Taoist in their current with their current rituals and ancestor worship and whatnot they have in there, different gods and everything, spirits. But none of that's in here. That's in later edition text. The Tao Te Ching talks about the Tao, right? It's a book of the Tao. What is the Tao? Well, wouldn't you like to know, and wouldn't he like to know? It's nameless. It's formless. It's it's not God per se. A Western equivalent could possibly be the Holy Spirit, maybe, kind of. Not quite. It's the way of the world. Another thing that's not really mentioned too much directly in here is Wu Wei. Wu Wei is a central Taoist teaching. That's what the yin yang is. It's what it represents. Wu Wei is effortless action. Right? There's lots of different translations of that, but basically means doing without doing. It's not that you're just laying back, smoking a cigar and then $100 falls on top of you. It's doing things in a way that it's not a struggle. Living life not lazy but easy. It's when you're in the zone, when you're an athlete and you get in the zone and you can, suddenly you can do anything. That's Wu Wei. It's hard to define, particularly for a Western audience. Eastern thinking is very different than the way we think typically in the United States or Europe or whatnot. So how does it relate to quantum physics? Well, that's just a little beginner guide I got. it's kind of, this is new theology or philosophy or something is being formed right now before your very eyes. That kind of takes this sort of thinking with this sort of information and a healthy dose of my boy over there, Jesus, and we're making a new religion, theology. It's something that has been forming over the internet recently. And I don't think it has any sort of structure, and it varies wildly. But there are a number of people who are trying to synchronize Taoism, particularly using the Dao de Ching, which is the central text, not the only text, and mixing it with the Bible. And there's a lot of overlap. You read this, you read the Bible in detail, not just, the stories and say, oh, Jesus fed how many fish? It's the actual meaning behind it, especially when you get into like Proverbs or Psalms, things of that nature. It really starts to get a little wu-wei, right? It gets a little I don't know what the word is. It gets a little Tao. But let's read some more excerpts from the stuff that I've underlined at least. Let's see here. Favor and disgrace would seem equally to be feared. Now, that's odd, right? From a strictly Western speaking, there's good, there's bad, be good, don't be bad, right? But Eastern thinking, the Taoism, good and bad are kind of the same thing. You don't want any extreme because there's trouble either way you go, right? The whole, you have a butterfly. If you hold your hand open, it'll fly away. If you squeeze your hand, it'll kill it. You gotta kind of have a halfway thing. It's the centrist book of philosophy, right? If you're into politics at all. And now you'll find lots of these that are written in very archaic English because they're more direct translations. And then you'll find some that are more easy to read, but they're not exact. They took a lot of liberty in interpretation, much like with the Bible and the different translations there. I guess Greek and Hebrew are pretty different from English, so let's read some more. Who can make the muddy water clear? Let it be still, and it will gradually become clear. Now that is a good one, right? That is Wu Wei. That is the doing without doing. You have muddy water. If you could try to filter it, you could try to this, that, the other, but if you just let it alone, it'll clear up, right? The sediment will fall to the bottom, basically. And back in the day, they didn't really have a lot of filtering. Let's see some others, because there's some good stuff in here. There's nothing in here that even as a Christian could be like blasphemous, or there's nothing in here that comes off really as out of touch. It all seems to really be pretty much on point for the most part. Now the history of this book is, it was written by Lao Tzu, but whether he was a real person or not, most people think, oh no, he was not. But they say the same thing about Homer and every biblical writer in the world. So there's skepticism about everything. So I wouldn't put too much stock in it. As far as I'm concerned, Lao Tzu was a real man who lived and breathed. I could be wrong, but this whole rushing to, everybody who written anything in the past, they're all fake. It was all gotten from different places and put together by nerds in some library somewhere. Ancient nerds that put together even more ancient texts to make their own stuff and then ascribe it to someone else. They say about the Bible, Lao Tzu, anything, anything that they want, anything that could possibly be true. No, that's not real. But then the other stuff, they're like, oh, but Muhammad did write his stuff. Well, yeah, he did, but not Lao Tzu, not John, not Peter. Couldn't be, right? To know that unchanging rule is to be intelligent. Not to know it leads to wild movement and evil issues. So it's basically an understanding of the Tao, the ways of the world, the unchanging rule, right? If you follow it, if you know it, that's smart. If you don't know the Tao, you're going to make a lot of dumb mistakes in life. And I see that a lot. I see a lot of people making a lot of dumb mistakes because they don't understand the fundamental nature of reality. They want to rush in. There's, particularly in Western culture, a lot of, I got to control, I got to be on top, I got to this wildness. When, sometimes a little bit of hesitancy or going with the flow or something might just be better for you. And just, I gotta get promotion at work. Why? Why do you want the promotion at work? Oh, so I could be the best. I can make more money. What are you gonna do with this money? I'll buy a bigger house. There's a point where you gotta weigh, is it really worth it? Maybe it is. Then go for it, right? But you got to know what you want. You got to know what you're going for and not just seeking fame and fortune for their own sake, right? You have to know. Now, this also has another book by Tao Tzu, which is very good. It's more like stories. This is more like proverbs, basically. It's divided into little, I don't know how well you can see that, but they're like little poems, more or less. It's, here, let's see, 81 poems. 81 short poems is basically the central text of Taoism. There's more history to learn about Taoism if you want to learn the history. No matter who you are, go on YouTube or wherever, buy the book, get the audiobook. Audiobook's perfectly fine. You can find it easily for free. Audiobook, put it in your headphones and listen to it. It's 2 hours. All right. It's not a long book. Right? It's not a long book. You can listen to it, no problem. I advise just about anyone, just for your own. Even if you disagree, then you know what you disagree with, right? You can say this is all lies. It's all about that money, baby, right? Give it a shot. It can be helpful, at least for contemplation. Most people have TikTok brain, and that's all that they think about all day long is personal drama, how to get more money and material wealth, more personal drama, food, TikTok, their latest meme. That's about it, right? And people talk about their jobs, their family, but not even that too much. Yeah, a lot of people don't have a lot going on that is not strictly modern. That is not something that was invented in the last 50 years, right? This social media and stuff, it's not healthy. But I digress. Anyways, 2 thumbs up. Read it. It is not the central religious text to my life, but certainly has some great points, highlightable stuff. You might want to get the real copy so you can underline and highlight stuff and come back to it at different times. If you're really feeling blue, I advise the same about the Bible as well, but that's a it's a much longer text, and at least they're pretty complex text. It's not something you just read once and you're done. A lot of theological text is like that. It hits you different at different times in your life. If you read Ecclesiastes in the Bible when you're 18, and then you read it when you're 30, you're going to pick up completely different points from it. Same thing with this. You know, the stuff I read might just be like, yeah, whatever. And then you might read it 5 years from now and be like, oh, that's the most powerful thing I've ever heard, even if it's something that you've already heard. That's a weird thing about life, isn't it? You can rehear the same thing and it'll hit you different at different times. So good luck.